annual conference of the Nigerian Institutions of Structural Engineers, a division of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. We are in Abuja for our annual conference this year, and as we all know, the Institution of Structural Engineers is concerned with the general advancement of science and art of structural engineering in Nigeria. And we, as an institution, try as much as possible to train, register those who have acquired the minimum training and skill by way of experience in the field of engineering. And it's on this note that we meet annually to brainstorm on issues that affect us as a body and as a people of this great country. On behalf of the National President, Engineer Dr. Kehinde Oshifala, for us to take the second stanza of our national anthem as our opening prayer. O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youths the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Thank you very much. I will still plead with you. The country, we are in difficult moments. As we all are aware, apart from the COVID-19 pandemic, for some days, our youths are on the streets of major cities across this country. And in the course of their protests, a lot of lives have been lost. So with the permission of the President, NISROT, we just observe 1 minute silence in respect of the souls that have been lost during this period. May their souls rest in peace. Thank you very much. May we be seated. The National President, Nigeria Institutions of Structural Engineers, Engineer Dr. Kehinde Oshifala, FNSE, FNISROT-E, the Honorable Minister of FCT, Mr. Juan Bello, ably represented by his Chief of Staff, Mohammed Bashir Membonu. You're welcome, sir. His Royal Highness, Reverend Dr. Bawa Jetta, the Esujikoi, current President, A.A. Ali, FNSE. As we all are aware, we are a professional division under the Nigerian Society of Engineers, and we recognize our President, who is also represented here, Baba Gana Mohammed, FNSE. Our past President, who are joining us live all over the country, we recognize all of you. Council members of our great institutions, National ESCO members, fellows, corporate members, invited guests, gentlemen of the press. You are all welcome to the 33rd Annual Conference and Annual General Meeting of the Nigerian Institutions of Structural Engineers. Permit me to call on the chairman of the Conference Planning Committee, Engineer Chris Okpala, fellow Nigerian Institute of Structural Engineers, to give a brief introduction of the conference. Engineer Chris, please.
Good morning, gentlemen and ladies. Standing on the existing protocol, introduction to conference. The 2020 annual conference and 33rd annual general meeting of the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, which is physical and virtual, has its theme as structural engineering in infrastructural and economic development. The conference will have both plenary and technical sessions on the main and sub-themes. The theme of this year's conference was carefully conceived from contemporary issues in Nigeria, the structural engineering practice, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the economic situation of the country. The conference is an annual networking event for structural engineers in Nigeria and a forum for engineers, professionals in the built industry, including government officials, local administrative authorities, funding agencies, contractors, suppliers of construction equipment and materials, investors, and other stakeholders in the built industry from public and private sectors to share ideas on the best practices and propose solutions to challenges in our sector, to prefer ways of dealing with the present diverse challenges occasioned by the economic situation of the country, COVID-19 pandemic, and how engineering infrastructure can be used to survey the economy. Structural engineering plays a key role in supporting the growth and development of a country's economy and improving the quality of life of its citizens. As such, there is an important link between the country's engineering capacity and its economic development, which is also dependent on the extent to which the government can commit finances and resources required for infrastructural projects, as well as ensuring a favorable business environment with good regulation without corruption. Infrastructure is the basis upon which growth is built upon: roads, buildings, structures, water supply, housing, telecommunications, transportation, airports, and other facilities, other utilities. Infrastructure development stimulates economic growth. Infrastructure is practically the key to modern technology in almost all the sectors of the economy. Infrastructural development is a catalyst to economic growth. It is the capital stock that provides the public goods and services. It produces various effects, including those on production activities and quality of life for the household, consisting of both social and economic infrastructures. I hereby welcome you all formally to the 2020 post-COVID-19 33rd annual conference and annual general meeting of the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, wishing all participants, those physically present and those online, a successful conference. Thank you all. Engineer Chris Ogbala, FNI Stroy, Chairman, Conference Committee.
Thank you, Engineer Chris, for introducing the conference for us. It is my pleasure, as I said earlier on, that the structural engineering family is unique. And it's my pleasure to welcome to the podium our national president, Engineer Dr. Kende Oshifala, to give his welcome address. Mr. President.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will stand on existing protocols to save time. I welcome you all to our year 2020 conference and 33rd annual general meeting of the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers. For the first time, our conference and AGM are being held physically and virtually, and our election is to be conducted online. All these are because of COVID-19 pandemic and the strict protocols laid down by the Federal Government Committee on COVID-19, limiting the number of people to gather at any public event. In the recent past, our conferences have been centered around infrastructure And again, this year, the theme of the conference is Structural Engineering in Infrastructural and Economic Development. The theme was carefully chosen to draw the attention of our members, the government, and the general public to the important roles that structural engineering and structural engineers are expected to play in our infrastructural and economic development. Our sub-themes and the scope of the conference have been deliberately reduced because of COVID-19. Really, this is a symbolic conference. More than ever before, there's a compelling need for us to create a synergy through advocacy between structural engineering, local content, infrastructure, and economic development. Structural engineering is a specialized discipline in civil engineering in which structural engineers are trained to design the bones and muscles that create the form and shape of man-made structures. Structural engineers need to understand and calculate the stability, strength, and rigidity of buildings and non-building structures. The Local Content Act defines Nigerian content as the quantum of composite value added to as composite of value added to or created in the Nigerian economy by a systematic development of capacity and capabilities through the deliberate utilization of Nigerian human and material resources and services in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. But in 2013, the federal government took a bold step in the promotion of local content in the construction sector when Mike Onolememe, the then Minister of Works, announced that all engineering and construction projects below 5 billion will be handled by Nigerian contractors who possess the requisite capacity and competencies. The intention of this policy was to begin a gradual but steady reversal of the domination of the Nigerian engineering and construction industry by the expatriates. On February 5, 2018, the President, retired General Buhari, signed a Presidential Executive Order 5 for planning and execution of projects, promotion of Nigerian content in contracts related to science, engineering, and technology. Under this executive order, procuring authorities are expected to give preference to Nigerian companies and firms in the award of contracts in line with the Public Procurement Act 2007. All these are deliberate attempts by the government to empower Nigerian engineers. Is this order being followed? Infrastructure remains one of the major elements of structural reforms in developing economy, like Nigeria, because of its expected large economic and social impact. Infrastructure are the basic essential services that should be put in place to enable development to occur. Economic development of Nigeria can be facilitated and accelerated by the presence of infrastructure. If these facilities and services are not in place, development will be very difficult. We must also invest in infrastructure to create jobs. Economic development is the increase in a country's wealth and standard of living. It is usually measured by an increase in the gross domestic product, GDP, or other measures of aggregate income. It is a process of targeted activities and programs that work to improve the economic well-being and the quality of life of a nation. Infrastructure is therefore the backbone of economic development. We have found ourselves in a continuous state of underdevelopment due to the neglect of planning for sustainable infrastructural development. In order to wake up to our responsibilities, the Nigerian structural engineer must be prepared to champion the advocacy on sustainable infrastructural development using the local content, and also be prepared to play the professional role of designing, supervising the construction of this infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I welcome you all to the virtual and physical year 2020 conference and the 33rd annual general meeting of the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers. Thank you. Engineer Dr. Kehinde Oshifala, the President, NI Structure.
A round of applause for the National President. Thank you very much for welcoming us, National President. And your address has addressed the theme of our conference, Structural Engineering in Infrastructure and Economic Development. There's no gainsaying that without infrastructure, no country can be said to be great. And that is what we'll be discussing in our meetings and in our discussion, technical sessions later today. At this junction, permit me to welcome the Honorable Minister, Federal Capital Territory, Bala Mohammed, Bello, thank you very much, sorry for that. Mohamed Bello, ably represented by his Chief of Staff, Mebonu, to come and present his address. Chief of Staff, sir. A round of applause for him.
Thank you very much. The National President of the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, the President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, ably represented, the President of the Council of Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria and Special Guest of Honor, His Royal Highness Etsujikoi, the Chairman of the Conference, Council members, ESCO members of the institution, fellows, members of the institution, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to apologize on behalf of the Honorable Minister of the FCT for his inability to be here physically. This is due to the ongoing meeting of the Federal Executive Council, of which he is attending this morning. So I'm here to read his short address on his behalf. I must thank the President and members of the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers for inviting me to give the keynote address at the opening ceremony of their 2020 conference and 33rd Annual General Meeting holding here in Abuja. It is also with great pleasure that I welcome the entire membership of the institution to the Federal Capital City. Your institution is known to be made up of very competent and reputable structural engineers. I must commend your institution for its involvement and contributions towards stemming the tide of building collapses in the country. The theme of the year 2020 Institutions Conference, Structural Engineering in Infrastructural and Economic Development, is topical, apt, and relevant to the current situation in the country. Infrastructure is the engine room for economic growth and alleviation of poverty in any country. Adequate infrastructure in the form of roads, bridges, a railway transport system, ports, jetties, power stations, airports, and their efficient working is also needed to create jobs. In the long term, infrastructure investment can boost economic growth by increasing the potential supply capacity of an economy. For example, improving transport facilities could make workers more mobile, so making labor markets more efficient and increasing productivity. The economy needs reliable infrastructure to connect supply chains and efficiently move goods and services across borders. Infrastructure connects households across metropolitan areas to higher quality opportunities for employment, healthcare, and education. We are all aware that your profession, structural engineering, plays a key role in the growth of any country. And I hope that during your deliberations, the institution would endeavor to proffer solutions to the issues of sustainability of infrastructure for the future. Questions that I would request you to brainstorm on are: 1, are we giving Nigerian engineers the opportunity as stipulated in the Local Content Act and the Executive Order number 5 by the President? 2, how can we have sustainable infrastructure? Your institution must conceptualize, design, and execute strategic reserves in various spheres of life for a sustainable future. Once again, I thank you for the invitation and wish you successful deliberations during your conference. Signed, Mohammed Musa Bello, Minister of Federal Capital Territory. Thank you.
Can we give the Honorable Minister another round of applause? Honorable Minister, ably represented, we shall be calling you shortly to officially declare this conference opened. It is true that engineering infrastructures are key to the economic development of any nation. And we as structural engineers, we are involved in all spheres of infrastructures: building structures, bridges, culverts, marine structures, mass telecommunications, name it. Any aspect of it that has structural engineering, we are involved. So on that note, we really appreciate the Honorable Minister, Mohammed Musa Bello, ably represented by Mebonu, for that his keynote address. Thank you once again, Your Excellency. The National President, Honorable Minister, His Royal Highness, past presidents, council members, National ESCO members, fellows, corporate members, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we take goodwill messages, it is my pleasure to call on the Honorable Minister of FCT, Muhammad Musa Bello, to officially declare this conference opened. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Honorable Minister of the FCT, Muhammad Musa Bello,